Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2019 psychological horror film, Saint Maud. Now, Saint Maud is one of those films that I've had on my radar for quite a long time now. Ever since the trailer first dropped back in 2020, it looked like it could be an interesting film. But I just bumped it down my watch list because I was leery of it for quite a long time because of all the high marks that it got and all the critical acclaim. And I know for some people they find that kind of puzzling because they're like, why would that make it a film that you're leery of? Like, wouldn't it be the opposite? But I knew that this was going to be distributed by A24 in the United States. And A24, for me, has been pretty much a misfire of a studio. Like, there's been numerous film after numerous film that was praised by critics and audiences, and then I finally check it out and I am incredibly disappointed by it, and I don't get why it gets so much praise, and I wind up not caring for it. And I guess I just wasn't really in the mood for that kind of film, that kind of potentially divisive movie. So I bumped it down my watch list, and I didn't check it out until recently, and I'm really glad that I finally took the plunge and watched this movie because I really liked it. I thought this was a compelling and chilling film, and honestly, one of the better horror films I've seen in a while, with some absolutely amazing performances by the cast and some just stunning direction by Rose Glass. Now, this is a film, though, where I think a lot of people are going to get different things out of it. So I think folks who are expecting a more traditional horror film approach, like the marketing would suggest, I think they're going to be disappointed by this movie. But if you go into this film seeing it as something that is more of a psychological drama with horror elements, I think that you'll appreciate it more than you might if you went into it with the expectation that it's going to be a straightforward horror film with jump scares and some of the other stuff that you expect from a more traditional horror movie. Now, Saint Maud is directed by Rose Glass, and I thought she did an absolutely remarkable job directing this movie. I am absolutely stunned that this is her feature debut. I can't even wrap my head around that fact because she doesn't show any of the failings or any of the issues that you see from first time filmmakers. This does not look like it's something that's too big for her. I mean, she just came in and killed it. I mean, the direction in this is just absolutely spectacular. And I'm not exaggerating either. I think it's a perfectly accurate way to describe her direction in this film. From the use of angles, from the use of different techniques, from the use of the movement of the camera. Everything is very precise. Everything is very solid in terms of its approach and the technique and the knowledge that she has when it comes to this medium. And there are a lot of shots in this film that are just mesmerizing. Like just the way that she tilts the camera. Shots that are shot in a way where you're looking at the protagonist upside down. The way that the film is shot just really captures the mood and the atmosphere and the chills and just the eeriness that the film is trying to evoke perfectly, as well as the emotion. It's a tour de force visually for Rose Glass, and I am absolutely, really 100% looking forward to what she has to offer next. Because if she is this good right out of the gate, I mean, it just it's just one of those things where you think about it and you're like, how much better is this filmmaker going to get? Like, what else does she have up her sleeve? And unlike some of these other writers and directors that I've seen lately when it comes to these independent horror films. Rose Glass actually does seem like a writer that knows how to write strong characters, knows how to write a story that's simple and to the point, but still complex and still interesting enough that it doesn't seem like something that's too banal or too boring. And I really love the fact that she decided to take the opposite approach versus some of these other writers of this kind of entertainment as of late. She put a focus on characters, making them feel more human, making them feel more relatable, and as a result, I think this script is so much more compelling and so much more effective than some of these other A24 horror films, for instance, like Midsommar or Hereditary for me, because of the way that the characters are written. They seem real, and as a result, you actually sympathize with Maud. You sympathize with Amanda. Like, you really do connect with these characters in a much more effective fashion. Where in some of these other scripts, you don't connect with them that much because they don't act like people. They don't act like human beings. With Maud here, you understand why she's doing what she's doing. And it just makes it all the more tragic and haunting because you see her as someone who is just desperate for meaning. She wants some meaning in her life. She wants a reason to be alive. And she wants to do good. And she wants to help people. But she's got serious issues that are going on in her head that ultimately cause her to be unable to work in the field that she wants to work in. She wants to be this nurse. She wants to help people. She wants to be like a saint and make people's lives better. She wants to do good. She wants to follow the teachings and the gospel of God and so on. But because of her mental state, she's not able to do that. So this leads her to just falling into her delusions. And it leads her to confusing her delusions for something entirely different than what they really are. She sees them as something that's a positive. It's a spiritual thing. She sees it as a way for her to finally show her worth. And I think a lot of people who are lost and are looking for meaning and purpose in life, I think they can relate to Maud's character quite a bit. And they could see why somebody would latch on to delusions like these so easily and ultimately become lost forever because of that. Like, you can see that because of the fact that everything's just falling apart. She worked as a nurse and she thought she was doing a good job. An accident happened when she was trying to do CPR on an older patient and he died. That stuck with her. She then moves on to another patient. She helps this ailing dancer named Amanda. And she sees this as some redemption for her, for what happened previously. But as things just continue to devolve in terms of her mental state, it leads to her losing that job. And now she has no way to go back to being a nurse, which is the very thing that gave her purpose in life. And now her delusions are able to take hold even easier and even more stronger fashion. So now She is completely controlled by her delusions and led by them even more than she was before, because that's the only thing that's there. She's lost her job. She's lost what she felt was her purpose in life. So now she moves to another purpose in life that she's always had, she's always dreamed of, to be a saint. And that leads to her going down this dark path where her religion becomes an obsession, and the obsession turns into insanity. She's wearing shoes with sacraments that have pins in them, and she's walking around with pins in her feet. She's alienating herself from people that she knows. She's becoming much more tied in to her delusion. She starts hallucinating more. She starts hallucinating that she's floating. She starts hallucinating things like these insects that show up on her walls. She starts hearing voices. She starts hearing what she interprets to be the voice of God, telling her about her mission, what she must do to reach a higher plane. And she then completely loses all grip on reality. She starts dressing up like a saint. She goes to the home of Amanda, who she initially thought was someone that cared for her and they had this bond, but because of Amanda's own issues coupled with her issues, it just led to a confrontation at a birthday party where Maud couldn't take the criticism that she was receiving from Amanda, because Maud was starting to become more and more obsessed with Amanda. Like, Amanda became the focus of her obsession, coupled with her already existing religious obsession. So it just became a very deadly cocktail, and she forced this woman out of Amanda's life that Amanda liked and was in relations with. And that woman shows up at the party, and Amanda starts talking and is not really happy with Maud taking over her life, which is understandable. And then it leads to a moment where Maud just snaps and hits Amanda. That's what caused her to lose everything. And then it leads to her showing up at Amanda's door, and she sneaks into her house, and there's this moment that's like something straight out of The Exorcist, where it seems like Amanda's possessed by some kind of demon. And then you see Maud stab her with some scissors. But that's just more of Maud's delusions that are coming through. It's showing how far she has completely gone, how far she's lost whatever grip she might have had on her sanity and reality. She's now seeing delusions that cause her to retaliate in violent fashion and murder someone. And this then leads to her going to the beach at the end of the film, dousing herself in acetone and lighting herself on fire, because that's the final step in order for her to ascend into heaven, because she needs to make that sacrifice. She's so crazy at this point. She thinks that she saved Amanda by killing her, because by killing her she killed the demon that was in Amanda, and she saved her soul. That's how completely screwed in the head Maud is at this point. And then she lights herself on fire in front of a crowd of onlookers at the beach. And even prior to that, she's hallucinating that she's got angel wings. And then she goes to the beach and she's still got these wings, and she sees a hole in the sky, and that's supposed to be her portal to heaven. And of course, all these other people at the beach are looking at her like she's absolutely fucking nuts. which she is. And even when she lights herself on fire, she has this smile on her face, and she's hallucinating that people are worshiping her, that they're going on their knees and praying. But in reality, they're just looking at her like she's just batshit insane, and they're trying to get her to stop from killing herself. And the last scene is the stark reality of what she has done. Her burning to death. And I think it's just a really effective script in terms of the way that it balances reality and delusion, the way that the story plays out. There are these moments throughout that continue to pique your interest, continue to keep you invested, wondering what's going to happen next, because she starts talking about how the Holy Spirit actually communicates through her, and she feels it, and it seems like it's just her having some sort of orgasm or whatever. So it turns into something where you're like really puzzled, and you're just completely just taken aback, and you're like, what is going on here? And you're wondering, like, where is this going to lead next? And like I said, I really do feel the script did a great job establishing Maud as a character, making you understand her, showing different facets of her character as well, like showing her let loose at the bar after she loses her profession, and seeing a little glimpse into what apparently she used to be prior to her uh, uh, job as a nurse, and prior to her finding this religious obsession of hers, where she had an addiction of another kind. She was addicted to alcohol. She was an alcoholic, and she was addicted to partying, and addicted to going to bars, and addicted to sex, and a lot of the other things that come from that kind of vice. And she gave that up, became a nurse, turned her life around, and it just led to her finding another obsession that ultimately was fatal in a completely different way. So it just makes it such a tragic tale of a young woman who's lost, searching for meaning, who had a moment in her life where she stumbled and she wasn't making the best decisions. She did the right thing and turned her life around, and it still led to disaster. So it just shows a different perspective of that kind of thing, where somebody can do the right thing. They could quit drinking, they could quit that lifestyle. But if something else is going on in their head that causes them to be drawn to that lifestyle, that it isn't always going to be sunshine and rainbows once they become sober and find another obsession to latch onto, because that's another thing that causes them to have this addictive behavior. But this time around, she's just addicted to being devoutly religious, addicted to being someone who is reaching for sainthood, which is a delusional view, in my opinion, in the first place. It just shows how far her mental illness has gone. And yeah, I think it's a really good film in terms of showcasing the inherent danger of mental illness, and how really this is a woman who needed therapy. This is a young woman who needed to go to therapy, who needed to get treatment, and needed to have someone to make sense of what was going on in her head, and try to get her to understand that it's not real. You're not, these voices are things that you should not be following. You should not be wanting or embracing or just loving these interactions. You should want to really go more towards reality instead of just further and further into these delusions. But when people are this mentally gone, it's something that is very, very difficult for them to break away from. The more that someone is in a mental state like this, the harder it is for them to get out of it. And that's sadly what leads to a lot of suicides. It leads to a lot of uh, moments like this where someone snaps and has a mental breakdown. And sadly, there is a connection with religion in some of these mental breakdowns as well, where people have these God complexes. And I guess another reason why this film spoke to me is because I have a personal connection to mental illness and to people who have these God complexes, or think that they're Jesus, because I had a family member who went through that, where he thought that he was some kind of savior. So I have a connection with that. So I think that's another reason why I like this story and I like the script, because it spoke to me. Yeah, it is sad, and there isn't a lot of hope, but I think that's a good way to really hammer home the message and really get things across to people that if you are having issues with your mental health, religious obsession is not healthy. It's not something that is necessarily going to help you. It could actually legitimately hurt you if you are in that kind of state. As good as the script is, as good as the direction is, though, I mean, this film would not be as special without the cast, especially the lead, Morfydd Clark. I thought she was magnificent. This was honestly one of the best performances that I've seen when it comes to this kind of film in a long time. I thought she was fantastic. The way that she was able to show vulnerability, to show all these different aspects of her character. You really did buy that this is a woman who was pained, who was confused, who was really struggling, and it just made the performance all the more sad and affecting, because it just felt so real and genuine. The moment when she's taking Amanda's lover aside and is telling her to get out of her life, you see someone who's on the verge of a breakdown. Then when she has the moment with Amanda at the birthday party and hits her, then you see the culmination of things. And then it just escalates further and further. And once you see her just continuing to fall down this religious rabbit hole and just unable to break out of it, and just becoming just so distant, it's something that is just, it's chilling. And large, and a big reason why it's so chilling is due to Morfydd Clark's performance. She's just amazing. It's a great performance. Deserves all the praise and then some for her performance as this character. Jennifer Ehle was also good too as Amanda. I like the scenes with her in Maud. You definitely did feel that this is a woman who didn't buy into the religious obsession. She called it like it is. She said it was bullshit. Like, even at the end of the film, when Maud surprises her and things are getting really tense, she's telling her to snap out of it. She's trying to be that voice of reason where it's like, snap out of it, honey. Like, this isn't healthy. Like, don't do that. Don't do this. And she's just too far gone to snap out of it. So I like that. I like the fact that, yeah, she is a very plausible and very realistic voice of reason. And she's flawed and she has her own problems. But she's not painted as someone that doesn't have her head on her shoulders, so to speak. And also, I liked her fire. I like the fire that Jennifer Ehle brought to that character as well. That you know, not gonna give a shit attitude. Something that I think a lot of people can find not necessarily inspiring, but something that they definitely can look at as something that they can potentially emulate if they're put in that scenario. If they're put in a scenario where they're dying, they can at least, you know, give death the middle finger. You know, and I felt that Jennifer Ehle really did a good job, you know, giving death the middle finger with this performance. Lily Knight is also fine as Joy. So is Lily Frazer as Carol. Um, but honestly, the film really hinges upon Morfydd Clark and Jennifer Ehle, and mainly Morfydd Clark, because it really is her film, and she carries it on her shoulders, and just runs away with it, and she's intended to. Like, this is her film. Like, this is Maud's film. Like, Maud and the performance of the character is what's going to make this film resonate. The cinematography by Ben Fortis I thought was great. This film looked really good. I really liked a lot of the different shots throughout this film. Even simple shots of Maud just walking down the street at night amongst neon signs. I just thought the way that it was shot was just really well done. And then it was equally as well shot when it comes to scenes where she's in her apartment at night and she's seeing bugs on the wall, or the moments where she is really completely lost in her delusion and she's seeing herself with angel wings, or seeing the clouds in the sky open up, and all this other stuff. Just a really well shot film. The film was also full of just excellent editing by Mark Towns. I thought the editing was top notch. It was terrific. It's very tight, and it was a very tightly wound kind of film anyway. It's a slow burn, but it really does ignite by the end of the film. And I think the editing did a great job building tension, or at least helping build the film's tension. The music by Adam Jannata Bazowski, not what I would say the strongest aspect of the film. It was very atmospheric. It was very moody. It was ethereal. It was the kind of typical sort of score you would see in this kind of film. It wasn't really something that was that memorable, but it did do a good job at times when it comes to escalating the anxiety and just the unsettling nature of certain scenes in the film. So it did a good job when it comes to that. And like I said, it's a short film. It's only like an hour and 19 minutes without the end credits. So it's not one of those films to me that is too much of a slog. It's relatively short. Unlike some of these other horror films that are a little bit more artsy, this doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't have a 2-hour running time, and I think it's all the more better for it, because it just seems like it's a movie that gets its point across and does it in a way that is very concise and very strong, but in a way that just isn't too convoluted, and it's just easier to follow, and it just makes things resonate even more strongly when it comes to the themes, when it comes to the characters, when it comes to what's going on in the film. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say about Saint Maud, except I would recommend it. If you liked the trailer for this film, I would definitely recommend checking it out. I know I gave a lot of spoilers, but I think even with spoilers, it's still a film worth watching for the visuals and for the performance by Morfydd Clark. And for some of the other themes and some of the other aspects of the film's script. But I will say this, if it's a film that doesn't interest you that much, if the trailer doesn't really grab you, then I would probably recommend maybe skipping it, because I don't think it's really going to bring as much to the table for you as it might for people that are more intrigued by the concept and by the film. But yeah, it's still a film that I do highly recommend anyone that was remotely curious about it checking out for themselves, because I did, and it was a really good experience. It was a good film. It definitely did stick with me. I think it has legitimate staying power. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Saint Maud. And as always, I'll see you later. See ya.